right, my watch says 7 o'clock, so we're going to start. So I'd like to welcome everybody to our 8th Lynch Syndrome Education Night. We do this every other year, which means we've been doing this for 16 years. And every time we do this, the number of people who attend grows, and it's really exciting to see so many people here tonight. We actually were counting seats because we had so many people RSVP. So you may find people coming in after, and if there are seats in between you, if you find that the room gets crowded, you might have to move over a little bit. But welcome to everyone. I hope it's exciting for you also to look around and see people you may recognize that you might have seen over the last decade and a half that we've been doing this. I am Melissa Aronson, and I'm the one of the genetic counselors at Mount Sinai Hospital. And we are 4 genetic counselors actually, and the other 3 counselors are going to do our first talk, so I'll introduce them in a second. I am filling the giant shoes of Dr. Zane Cohen, who's going to moderate tonight. And he unfortunately came down with an illness today, and he can't make it. So he asked me to fill in, and I'm going to try and do that. We put up a Twitter hashtag. That's the newest thing, I guess, or not newest, but whatever. But anyways, if you want to tweet out about the Lynch Syndrome Education Act, we'd really like to raise awareness about Lynch syndrome, as I'm sure all of you do too. And so that's our hashtag ZCC for Zane Cohen Centre Education Night. And we're going to take all questions at the end of the evening. So we're going to have our speakers talk, and then they're going to sit in a panel when we're all done so that you can ask your questions. I also wanted to make a quick announcement about the genetic counselors, because I'm going to introduce the 3 counselors I work with. And Laura Winter, who some of you may know, who might have been your counselor, actually was off on maternity leave, and she moved to Abu Dhabi with her family. So she's not returning to Mount Sinai because she's around the world. But Tom Ward, who you're going to hear from just a minute, is the counselor who's taking over for all of Laura's families. So if you know Laura or if she's your counselor, then feel free to come up to Tom and say hi. Right, Tom? Yes. Okay, good. So the first talk that we're going to do is to address some of the hot topics that we get asked all the time by our families. And we've been sort of collecting some of the questions, and in the survey that we sent out recently about patient support group, people told us some of the things that they were most interested in. And so the counselors are going to speak about that. So our 3 counselors are Spring Holter, Kara Smodiak, and Tom Ward, and the 3 of them are going to speak together about some of the latest information about Lynch syndrome and some of the hot topic questions that we get asked. So I'll call up Spring first to get us started.
Okay, so what I'm going to present in the next 5 minutes or so is a paper that was recently published in July in the journal Genetics in Medicine. The paper is estimating giving you estimates on cancer risk in individuals with Lynch syndrome. The reason that this paper maybe is exciting to us and to you guys as well is that a lot of the cancer risk estimates out there you guys have probably seen have very wide ranges, or just in general for Lynch syndrome, maybe not be specific for the gene mutation that you have. And so what is presented in this paper is information on specific cancer risks on about 6,300 patients with Lynch syndrome. It's broken down by gene and gender as well as age group. And so, one of the other things that's very exciting about the paper is that it's all prospective data. So all the data that we've had in the past is mostly retrospective, meaning we're going back to families that maybe presented 20, 30 years ago and estimating the risks based off that. So this is the latest data. Just want to point out that this is not the final say. There's still information being collected. So even though there are finite numbers in here, we want to keep an open mind that it's not the end-all and be-all at the moment. Okay. So these are the gynecologic and colorectal cancer risks in Lynch syndrome. So just down the side, we have the cancer type, so colorectal, endometrial, ovarian. At the top, we have the genes, MLH1, MSH2, MSH6, and PMS2, and I put the last column of the general population risk, so people who don't have Lynch syndrome, what the general population risk is. And then it is by gender, so male and female. For PMS2, it is combined because they didn't have as many mutation carriers to estimate risk, so you don't have gender-specific risk for PMS2 at the moment. So what we can see is it's about a 40 to 50% risk for colorectal cancer in MLH1 and MSH2. For MSH6, it looks like there's about a 20% lifetime risk for colorectal cancer in both genders and about a 10% risk for colorectal cancer with PMS2. Average risk is 6%. For the endometrial cancer risk, general population is 3%. For MLH1, MSH2, and MSH6, they have quite high risk, between 40 and 50%. And PMS2 is quite a bit lower at a 12% risk. For ovarian cancer, general population is 1.5 or so. Risk range between 10 and 20% for all the genes besides PMS2, which is pretty low, not significant at 3% risk. So these are the other Lynch syndrome associated cancers. All the other GI cancers are grouped together up here in this category. So stomach, small bowel, pancreas, bile duct, gallbladder. It's most likely grouped together because there wasn't enough incidences to calculate for individuals. So that's meaning specific organ risks in the future. A general population, this is really for stomach or pancreas cancer, is about a 1.4% risk. And really what we see is that the highest risks are in MSH2 and men with MLH1 mutations, and that there's increases with MSH6 and PMS2, but not as high. For the urinary tract cancer risk, this is ureter and renal pelvis, so upper urothelial cancers and bladder. Highest risk seems to be in men with MSH2 mutations, but increased with MLH1, and women with MSH2, and potentially men with MSH6, but not as high as the other ones. No increased risk with PMS2, also no increased risk for brain tumors in PMS2, and really it looks like maybe the highest for brain tumor risk is a little bit higher than general population, except for men with MSH2 mutations. But again, they're very small numbers, so we'll continue to collect data on that. And the last two cancers that I wanted to address, because I think there is a lot of information that's been going around in the last 5 years or so that prostate and breast cancer potentially could be associated with Lynch syndrome as well. And what they found, so breast and prostate cancer are extremely common in the general population. For men, there's a 11% risk of developing prostate cancer in your lifetime. Really, they didn't find any significant increases in any of the genes except for MSH2. So that may be different than what's out in the population now. And then for women with breast cancer, the general population risk is 12%, and they actually did not find any significant difference in lifetime risk for any of the Lynch syndrome genes. So again, data will continue to be collected, but I think our general recommendations now are just follow based on your family history or general population guidelines. So some of the conclusions, stuff that we didn't know before is that I think maybe some of us knew that MLH1 and MSH2 have the highest risks as opposed to MSH6 and PMS2. MSH2 has a higher non-colon 9 gynecologic cancer risk than MLH1. For MSH6, women have a much higher cancer risk than men do, and that's really because of the gynecologic cancer risk, and they have a moderate increased risk in MSH6, so about the same for both genders. In PMS2, it looks like, and this is new information, so it looks like there's not a significant increased risk of cancer prior to the age of 50. and only a non-significant increase after the age of 50. So as we start to collect more data on this, screening recommendations potentially could change. Today, we are not changing anything. Everybody in this room should be having your colonoscopy every 1 to 2 years, unless you're a spouse. Obviously, if things change, you will hear about it next time or upcoming meetings. Okay. So our next speaker is Kara Simone.
Just before I begin, to let you know, we are recording the talks tonight, and the slides will also be available on our website later, so we can maybe send out a notice when they're edited and posted. So for anyone, don't feel you need to take notes, we'll have them available for you. So tonight, my goal is to address a few common questions that we have heard repeatedly from you as your genetic counselors. There are some common themes and questions that we wanted to touch on that might be of relevance for most of you. And so, mostly around the area of management for Lynch syndrome. So the first question, and one that we hear the most, I would say, is how can I reduce my risk of colorectal cancer? The most important way, as Spring just mentioned, is to have regular colonoscopy, and we are still recommending the same across the board for everyone with Lynch syndrome, and that is colonoscopy every 1 to 2 years, beginning around the ages of 20 to 25, and that can vary a little bit between families, but that's in general. And colonoscopy is so important because it can actually prevent colorectal cancer, so it's more than just a screening test, but a prevention as well. And the rationale for the frequency is that research has shown that polyps can become malignant faster in the context of Lynch syndrome as compared to a sporadic polyp becoming colon cancer. And as well, there's a younger average age of colorectal cancer in Lynch syndrome compared to the general population. So as Spring alluded to, these recommendations might change in the future with more research, but for now, this is what we're recommending. It's also important to keep in mind that the FIT test, which has replaced the FOBT test, these are tests that look for traces of blood in the stool and are screening tools for the general population, but these are not replacements for people with Lynch syndrome for screening, and colonoscopy is still the gold standard. As well, you might have heard of virtual colonoscopies or CT colonography, and it can look for lesions and polyps in the colon, but can miss very small polyps. So again, it's not a replacement for colonoscopy. So the second component of this question is around lifestyle choices, and these are questions that we frequently get. They're hard to answer. These are some lifestyle, factors that have been associated with a lower risk for colorectal cancer. Things like eating a healthier diet, including limiting your red meat and processed meats, eating more fiber and dairy, not smoking, reducing alcohol intake, exercising, and actually the opposite of that as well. Research has shown that being sedentary can also increase your risk for colon cancer. Also, a higher BMI has been associated with an increased risk, and so losing weight could help as a colon cancer risk reducer. These are all things that are fairly difficult to research, and we can't give specific recommendations. So for example, how much red meat is safe, or what is a BMI, if I'm under certain limits that I won't get colon cancer. So they're not that specific. They're just general healthy lifestyle choices that pertain more to just colon cancer. But by making some of these choices, you might reduce your background risk that exists from having a Lynch syndrome gene mutation. The third component of this question is around chemo prevention. So we get a lot of questions about, can I take anything, any medications or supplements? There's a little bit of research in this area. One main one that we probably mentioned to most of you is that aspirin has been shown to help reduce the risk of colon cancer in people with Lynch syndrome. But the dose that was that they figured out in the first phase of the trial, which was called the CAP2 trial, was 600 milligrams, which is a very large dose of aspirin, and not necessarily safe for everyone to take because of other health concerns. So just to compare, baby aspirin is only 81 milligrams, so it's a large dose. But there is a subsequent arm of this trial called CAP3, where they're trying to figure out what's the safest minimum dose of aspirin that might be beneficial in reducing colon cancer risk. So that is underway. I think they've closed recruitment, so hopefully there'll be some data coming from that in the next couple of years. As well, there was a paper that came out a few years ago showing that multivitamins, and calcium intake for a span of at least 3 years were associated with a decreased risk for colorectal cancer. Obviously, just note at the bottom, it's important to speak to your family health provider or specialist before taking any of these. The next question, how can I avoid insurance discrimination? Some of you have asked me this out in the hall tonight, so I know it's a common question, but there was, in 2017, here in Canada, the Genetic Non-Discrimination Act was introduced, and this prohibits companies and employers from requiring genetic testing for a job or from requesting your copy of your genetic test results for the purpose of employment or for getting insurance. It also prevents companies from denying services based on your genetic test results. So there is sort of a bit of a level of protection, but it's not perfect. There are some limitations to this bill. For example, if you're applying for insurance, they'll inevitably ask you about your family history and your personal medical history. So sometimes if you've had cancer yourself or you have a strong family history, your insurance might be more expensive or you might be denied it just based on that, regardless of your genetic test results. We're not insurance experts, but that's kind of some of the themes that we've been told, and it's hard to know exactly, but there's also a fine line between the benefits of finding out you might have Lynch syndrome and getting the appropriate screening versus the risk of being denied insurance. So it's different for everyone. Lynch syndrome also, that term may be mentioned in some of your other medical records. So if you go for a colonoscopy, for example, your gastroenterologist might say in the notes that this person is here today for colonoscopy because of Lynch syndrome. So it's impossible to prevent it from being in your general medical records. So for these reasons, sometimes younger people or people who are unaffected with cancer might consider getting insurance first before undergoing genetic testing for a mutation that's running in their family. Next question, what age should my children have genetic testing? So in general, we suggest no younger than the age of 18 to 20, and that's because people are old enough to understand the information, make their own medical decisions, and because the recommendations for colonoscopy start at 20 to 25, so we wouldn't usually do anything under the age of 20 in terms of surveillance or prevention. In rare occasions, we might test someone under 18, and that's if there's a really young colon cancer in a particular family, or if two siblings are interested in getting tested at the same time, and one is 20 and one is 17, and they want to go through it together, we might consider that. And as well, if both parents have Lynch syndrome, which is very, very rare, Tom's going to be talking about that in the next section. So we just suggest if you need help with strategies for discussing Lynch syndrome or wondering when and how to get your children tested, that you can call us and we'll help guide you through that. Lastly, what are the updated screening recommendations for Lynch syndrome? And unfortunately tonight we don't have time to go through everything. The guidelines have not changed much in the last number of years, but again, they might in the future, so it's important to keep in touch with us. And it's also important to update your genetic counselor if you have any new diagnoses of individuals with polyps or cancer in your family, because that might guide us towards giving you some different recommendations for screening that we didn't think of when we met with you first. And I wanted to just show you this document here. You can't read it, but just to show you that this exists. We have this Lynch syndrome screening summary sheet that we're happy to provide to you for your own reference and also for your family health practitioner to help guide them through the screening recommendations for Lynch syndrome. So if you didn't have one of these, we'll have some on the table on the way out, or you can call us and we'd be happy to send it to you. With that, I will pass the baton to Tom Ward. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Ward, and there we go. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about something that we've recently started offering to families with Lynch syndrome in certain situations, and just talk a little bit about how reproductive technology can be used to help try and prevent passing on genetic conditions to future generations. And so I thought it would be helpful to start with a very brief refresher of how Lynch syndrome is inherited. So if someone has Lynch syndrome and they have children with someone who does not have Lynch syndrome, there's a 50% chance that the Lynch syndrome gene mutation will be passed down to each pregnancy, and a 50% chance that it won't. And It's slightly different if both parents of a pregnancy have Lynch syndrome caused by a mutation in the same Lynch syndrome gene. If that is the case, there is about a 1 in 4 chance, or 25% chance, that both parents will pass down the gene change to the pregnancy. And if you are not related to the other parent of your pregnancy, this is very rare, but if it happens, it does cause a condition called constitutive mismatch repair deficiency. And this is a early childhood cancer risk condition that increases a child's risk for blood cancers, brain cancers, as well as other cancers. And so, given what Spring was saying about us learning that there are lower risks for cancer associated with PMSH6 and PMS2 genes than we once thought, we've started to offer what's called carrier testing to partners of people who have a mutation in either of these two genes. And that can be used for family planning to see if any future pregnancies might be at risk for CNMID. And if someone with a mutation in one of these two genes has young children, we're also offering testing to the other parent of these children. This testing is not necessary for the other parent if the children are older, or if a family has Lynch syndrome due to an MLH1 or MSH2 mutation, we would consider testing if their partner has a strong family history of cancer. As Spring said, we see higher cancer risks for those gene mutations. So the way that we can use this information if we find that a pregnancy is at risk for CNMRD, or if someone is interested in learning more about ways to prevent passing on a genetic mutation, we can use reproductive technology called in vitro fertilization. And that's when we actually retrieve eggs and sperm, create an embryo outside of the body, and we can then use that to create a pregnancy. And during stage 4 here, once we create the embryo, there's actually relatively new technology called pre-implantation genetic testing, PGTM for short, where we can test the embryo to see which embryos have inherited a gene mutation and which ones haven't, and then use any embryos that may not have inherited the gene change to start a pregnancy. Now, there are quite a few costs associated with this technology. OHIP currently covers one round of in vitro fertilization, which otherwise would cost up to approximately $10,000. However, it does not cover medication, the cost of medication required to complete this procedure, which can be about $5,000 to $5,000 approximately. And it also does not cover the costing of the actual testing for the embryos, which can be anywhere up to about $11,000. Also, another cost associated is the storage of any embryos that are not used to create a pregnancy. It's about $100 a year. And a few more things to think about with PGTM. In vitro fertilization and PGTM do not guarantee that there will be any embryos that have not inherited a genetic mutation, and it cannot guarantee a healthy pregnancy. And there are some circumstances where PGTM is difficult or maybe not possible for testing for certain gene changes. Okay, and if this is something you'd like to learn more about or are interested in a referral for a fertility consultation, you can always go to your genetic counselor. Thank you.
While we switch the slides, there we go. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. It's Dr. Brenda O'Kane. She is a medical oncologist at